So when I read that book and he broke down entrepreneurship and real estate and business, I'm like, this is what we're not being taught, right? I really felt like that was the missing ingredient that my mom didn't have to actually allow us to be in a better position financially. And so I started focusing and going down that path and really seeking out the information, right? What you focus on grows. You might hear people talk about that a lot. And so I start focusing in on entrepreneurship and money and understanding how it all works. And, more and more, the more and more I did that, things began to open up to me. My name is Kesha Farlow. I am the founder of the IMPower Center here in South Bend, Indiana. And you are watching the What's Your Hustle podcast.
What's your hustle? What do you do? Here to bring money and attention to you. A lot of people want to know, you gotta give them the truth. Here to run the numbers up, we about to go through the roof. What's your hustle? What's your hustle? Here to talk about your grind, how you spend your time. We done brought you to the show, you gotta speak what's on your mind. What's your hustle? What's your hustle? What's your hustle? What's your hustle?
Welcome back to another episode of What's Your Hustle podcast. And today we have a special guest. Her name is Kesha Farlow. She is the owner and operator of the IMPower Center here in South Bend, Indiana. She is definitely a pillar in the community. She's an entrepreneur. She is a woman of faith. And today we are going to get to know more about her and her journey into becoming the woman who she is today. So everybody, clap it up for Kesha Farlow.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate that.
you are so welcome. So Kesha,
Yes, sir.
tell us what made you want to become an entrepreneur.
I actually had a desire to become an entrepreneur after moving up as far as I could inside of the company I was working for. And so my next step would have been my boss's job. And I realized it was very unlikely that I'd ever have that position. Not to mention, I had a strong desire to help people in a greater capacity than I was working at the job. But I used to, make it work because I would tell myself, well, you helping corporate companies achieve their goals, so that's good enough, right? So I would, just kind of downplay my desire to help people by shifting it to, where I am helping these companies achieve their goals. So I kind of settled there and tried to make myself be content, but I was never content. And so getting to that place where I couldn't go any further in the job, it was almost a push into my next move.
And so what exactly was you doing with the corporate client?
I was a senior project manager for a sign company. So I had clients like Fidelity and Nike and GameStop, to name a few of them. But what would happen is whenever those companies would open a new location or relocate or renovate, I was responsible for their signage. So I would hire local contractors because I worked national projects. I would manage upwards of 80 projects at a time, different locations all across the United States. And so I would be responsible for running that project. I'd give them a budget, they'd approve the budget, and I'd get the manufacturing done, get the product shipped out, make sure it stayed on time, and then hire local people to actually get the manual labor done.
And so then going through all of that, that's when you was like, I think I can do this. I can do something similar to this myself. Yeah.
You know what? So again, I forced myself to be content in that job. So that's what I did for them. I really didn't even realize that God was using all those skills to prepare me for what I was going to do. Because I really like helping people. So even on the job, I would talk to them about buying homes. I would talk to them about life insurance and their finances. And I would help the employees that I was around. And so I forced myself to find contentment in that while at the same time helping the corporate clients, because I didn't want to do what I was doing for the corporate client at all in entrepreneurship. But the skills that I learned in that corporate position helped prepare me for what I'm doing today.
So what was life like for you before you were even dealing with the corporate clients? Like what were you doing? Like what was your mindset back then?
So I was always told, go to school, get an education so you can go get a good job. So that's what I did. I finished high school a whole semester earlier than my graduating class. So I finished in January. Everybody else finished in May because I already had my son and I wanted to sit out with him for a semester before starting college. So that summer, I actually started at IUSB after graduating from Clay High here locally in South Bend. So started at IUSB, taking my courses. I thought I wanted to be an accountant. And so I was taking all my classes that aligned with being an accountant. I finished the associate's degree in business management and then ended up changing from accounting to marketing because I got into the intermediate accounting class and it was terrible. I couldn't get my brain to transfer credits and debits, the opposite of what I had learned. So, everybody said go to school, get an education so you can go get this good job, buy you a house, kind of follow the American dream, right? So I was doing that. I finished college. I was married before I finished my bachelor's degree. About 2 years into college, I ended up getting married when I was 21. And so by the time I finished at the age of 23, we bought our first home. So moved in. I started my career as a business development manager for Jordan Automotive Group, where I started learning about the car buying process and financing vehicles. It was my first introduction to personal finance on that level. But yeah, I had just settled into our home and working full time and thought that was what I was supposed to do.
And so fast forward, then you're working in the corporate sector and you're helping all these people, and then you said, okay, I want to be my own boss. What was like your next move once you said, I want to work for myself?
Yeah, I wish I can say that I willingly made all the decisions. But if I'm honest, I feel like God literally put things in my path to help me make the decision to become an entrepreneur. So in 2006, I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then right after that, I read Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. Again, this is after working in the car industry. In 2007, I ended up switching jobs over to the project management corporate position. But all this time I'm learning about money. And then in 2008, I was introduced to real estate. And I started purchasing homes, buying investment properties. So the market had crashed. I knew nothing about a market crash. And I believe the Lord impressed upon me to Google real estate. And so I did one day, just watching TV, had a desire or intuition or, I believe it was the Holy Spirit, said Google real estate. And so I did. And I found that homes were selling for $5,000. And I'm like, man, we pay $80,000. These selling for $5,000. We need to get rid of ours and go get some of them, right? The numbers just made sense. So I put a for sale by owner sign in our front yard, created some flyers, and within 2 weeks, our house was sold. Went over across town on the north side and started buying properties. And so we ended up buying 4 properties on the north side, relocated to Florida. Now, I did on my way to Florida, because before we left, I was introduced to Primerica. So Primerica is the platform that I use to teach financial literacy and to help clients. And so being introduced to them prior to moving to Florida, so this was 2008. Now I'm buying the properties. I'm introduced to Primerica, and Primerica is again more education on money. And so I say, you know what? I'm going to go to Florida and I'm going to just work for myself and do the Primerica business. Well, I wasn't quite ready. So I got down there. I didn't do anything that aligned with what I said, right? I ended up going to work for ITT Technical Institute. I found out actually I was pregnant when I moved to Florida. And so fear crept up again. So it's like, you pregnant, you the breadwinner, you got to go get a job, right? Went right back to you got to have a job. And so I went and got a job. I started working for Comcast first and then ITT Technical Institute down in Florida. So I'm saying that to say it wasn't where I was like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I put this plan together and I jumped in. It was different activities and circumstances and situations that happened from 2006 all the way until I finally became an entrepreneur in 2016. So it's a 10-year journey of stuff happening to get me to 2016, and I jump into entrepreneurship.
And how valuable would you say that journey was to where you're at now?
Man, being obedient during that journey, like buying the properties and listening to the Holy Spirit tell me to go and Google real estate, that is what created my financial stability to become an entrepreneur, right? I didn't know that it was doing that at the time. I just thought it was giving me extra income to have real estate property. And so fast forward, when I became an entrepreneur, I had a base salary from my real estate that was $2,900 a month coming in, because at that time I have 5 properties now. And so each of those properties ended up paying my base salary so I could get into entrepreneurship and still not feel a lot of the pressures that come with entrepreneurship. So I took risks, but they were more calculated risks, right? So building up that base allowed me to transition in and not have so much pressure financially.
What's some of the books that you read that helped you get into real estate?
The first one was Rich Dad Poor Dad. That one shifted my mindset. You know, people talk about paradigm shifts. And I later realized, or was introduced to the term paradigm shift. So I didn't realize a paradigm shift was happening when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Wait, explain paradigm shift for those who may not be familiar.
Okay, so a paradigm shift, I was introduced to that in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People with Stephen Covey. And so in that book, he talks about how there are moments in your life where new information comes that give you a new perspective. And it can totally shift the direction that you thought you were headed in. And so when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was on vacation and couldn't put the book down. You know, we had went to Florida. I'm supposed to be enjoying the sunshine, and I was stuck in this book. Right? It was helpful that it was an 18-hour drive because we drove down to Florida. Right? But I was just stuck in this book. And so reading that book, I realized the Rich Dad Poor Dad scenario is the rich dad is actually his friend's dad who was into business and real estate and entrepreneurship. The poor dad was his dad who was a history teacher and tried to get the author to go down the path of becoming a history teacher because he felt like that was a good, safe job. And so I was my first introduction to entrepreneurship was 2006, reading that book. Outside of that, the only entrepreneurs I knew was drug dealers. Right? Being, coming up where I come from on the west side of South Bend, the only entrepreneurs I saw were people who sold drugs. So we would equate entrepreneurship to that. I didn't see business owners and people who, own their facilities, right? Frankie's, I believe, was around, but it wasn't impressionable upon me at that time yet. And so there may have been some Black-owned businesses around, but what I saw, it was whites that own businesses. And so we kind of get settled in a place where we feel like it's just for them. So it wasn't part of my thought process. It wasn't part of my perspective. So when I read that book and he broke down entrepreneurship and real estate and business, I'm like, this is what we're not being taught, right? I really felt like that was the missing ingredient that my mom didn't have to actually allow us to be in a better position financially. And so I started focusing and going down that path and really seeking out the information, right? What you focus on grows. You might hear people talk about that a lot. And so I start focusing in on entrepreneurship and money and understanding how it all works. And, more and more, the more and more I did that, things began to open up to me. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad was in 2006. Then Dave Ramsey and Total Money Makeover. Those are books that's specific to the path that I took for entrepreneurship. So I teach financial literacy. So I started tapping into books that were about financial literacy, right? But then Stephen Covey and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Success is Not an Accident. The Go-Giver. Those are some of the books. Now, I will be honest. Like right now, I got a book called The Big Leap. And it's really instrumental in talking about mindset and what keeps us from going all in entrepreneurship and not feeling like if I don't have all these different streams coming in. Because it's one thing to have multiple streams of income. But then it's a whole nother something to be on the path to entrepreneurship and you brand new in it and you trying to do 7 different things, right? You really sabotaging your own success. And I have to learn that over and over again the hard way, right? So I'm reading the book, The Big Leap. And then I started cleaning up and I had like a 3-hour excursion of cleaning, which I hate to do. I usually pay somebody to clean for me. But I said to myself, I wonder if this book is on audiobook, and it was. So I'm saying that to say, it's not that you got to always pick up a book, because I don't really care to read from a book as much as I do now, just turn on YouTube. Because the audio books are on YouTube. The whole book you trying to read, you can listen to it. And I speed up the speed of the reader so I can hurry up through the book. So I usually turn my speed up on YouTube as well so I can get through the book. So I got halfway through the book in 3 hours listening to it on audio.
What's the easiest way that people could get started in real estate and buying and flipping homes if that's what they wanted to do? Yeah. In my opinion, in the market we in now, so when I got started in 2008, it was a little different. When I would purchase the house for $5,000, if you've ever purchased real estate before, then you know that when you go buy it, whatever you paying for it is actually less when you get to the table. So when I would get to the table, it would be like $3,000 because taxes had jumped up so high at the same time. And so people were losing their homes, not just because the bad mortgages they had, but at the same time, the property taxes had jumped up crazy. So some people were losing their house because they couldn't keep up with the property taxes. And so when you buy real estate, the property taxes is deducted off of the price that you're paying for it, because we pay property taxes. It's called in arrears. So the property taxes I pay this year are for last year, right? So it's behind. So when you close on a real estate transaction, the property taxes is coming off of that price. So I would pay like $3,000 at the table, right? Literally walk away with a whole house for $3,000. Wow. And which, by the way, even though it was so cheap, my mindset was go to school, get a good education so you can get a good job. So real estate was never introduced to the equation. So even though I was only paying $3,000, I was scared to death to sign the paperwork every time. Wow. Isn't that crazy? Because of the way my brain had been conditioned since I was born. We didn't have multiple real estate properties. So it made me feel like I was doing something I had no business doing. It made me feel like I was doing something I should be afraid of. And so every time I would go sign the paperwork at the title company for $3,000 or $8,000 or $12,000, these small dollar amounts, I was scared to death. Oh my God, what am I doing? Should I be doing this? Should I take on all this burden? Because the next thing that had to happen, I had to renovate these properties, right?
And so I'm saying it's a different market right now, because back then when I would pay $3,000, community wide had a a mortgage program where I can go borrow $15,000. Well, now that's unheard of. Most banks and credit unions want you to get a mortgage for $50,000 or more. They don't want to give you $15,000. So community wide literally gave me 3 loans, 3 or 4 loans for $15,000, somewhere around $15,000. So what would happen is I would buy the property for that $3,000. I would go get my Menards and my Lowe's card, and then I would pull the $15,000 off of the house and pay for the labor. Right? And they were 10-year mortgages at $15,000. So the mortgage was like $300. But the rent was like $500, $500 or $600, right? Mm-hmm. So the market was a little bit different. But what do I think people should do today? I think the first thing people should do is really buy their own property. Become a homeowner. Because the market that we've been in has allowed several people to now refinance their properties because they're worth more, pull the equity out of them, and go take that and buy you a property. Then there's another type of lending called hard money. I don't think that that's such a terrible idea, right? If I was going to do hard money, I would likely flip a couple. Take that capital and then go buy something cash. You got to get the money. You got to get capital in your hands, because that's what it's going to take to buy real estate. You know, a lot of us, we hear other people's money or OPM, buy properties, and we pay thousands of dollars to take these real estate classes. No, it's a joke, literally, in my opinion. And they do that because they know emotionally they tapping into a group of people who is desperate to get ahead. So we'll pay $2-3 to go listen to them tell us some stuff, and then we never take action on the information, because after they get done telling me and it sound good, okay, now what do I do? Right? That's the biggest thing about the IMPower Center when I purchased it. I'm like, we gotta give people plans. How do I do whatever the thing is you're trying to teach me how to do? And then follow through with them. Help hold them accountable. And hold their hands, so when they come back and got a question, well, no, you can't talk to me. You paid $2-3 for that class, and now I got nothing for you. You know what I'm saying? I'm rambling.
So what? We talked a lot. You mentioned mindset a couple times. Like, what does what do we have to do as individuals to change our mindset in order to get prepared for like entrepreneurship and what God has for us in the next phase?
Right. Man, that's a sensitive topic, but yet one that I'm extremely passionate about, because like I said, every time I would go to the real estate table and go to the title company to sign off and get my house that I just paid $3 to $5 for, right? I was scared to death. Well, where did that fear come from? Right? So we have to go back to our childhood and really, number one, understand that I've been conditioned to be who I am. My coach would say a lot, I am where I am because of my own best thinking, or you are where you are because of your own best thinking. So we arrive at places in our life based off of our environment and what we've been taught. And a lot of times, especially for Black people, when you look inside that environment, you're not being taught a whole lot of valuable information that will help take you to being, help you elevate to your best possible self, right? We usually looking at murders, hearing gunshots, looking at unhealthy relationships where the women getting beat or the men getting beat, right? Men not working and sitting around the house while the woman got 2 and 3 jobs, carrying the household. So we see a lot of unhealthy stuff. Going through different traumas in our childhood where, you know, you're being molested by your uncles and you're being molested. And not that white people don't go through this stuff. I know they do. I just feel like, from my perspective, Black people go through it at higher and more alarming rates, because I believe a lot of that activity come along with poverty and struggle. And so because of the situations that we be in, I believe that it causes a lot of negative experiences. So the first thing that I got to do when I'm thinking about changing my mindset is I got to understand where am I at? Who am I? Right? And it's sad that it took me until 36. I say it's sad, but I don't want to be offensive to anybody who's 50 and still trying to figure it out. But for me, I say it's sad because what could I have done in my first 36 years if I really had realized that I'm valuable? You know what I'm saying? So it took me until I was 36 years old to realize I am somebody. I'm valuable. I have a lot to offer the world. I got a lot to offer society and my community. I got a voice. I need to be teaching, and I'm still not doing it at the level of what some of my partners would tell me. Like you know, they still fuss at me. They say the people need to hear you. They need to hear your voice. And I'm going to get there. But it's not because I don't want to. Right now, I'm doing so much that it's hard to fit it in all the time. So I appreciate people like you who force me to sit down and talk about stuff, right? Because I don't do it a whole lot. But I first had to realize where I was at. And I had to realize that I didn't know who I was. I knew what my environment had produced. But I didn't like her. And I didn't think she had anything valuable. And so because I was focusing on all the negative things, it was hard for me to see the worth and the value. So I had to realize who I was. And once I realized that and realized that I had a lot of work to do, one of the first things I started doing is listening to videos on YouTube. I started with people I knew. So I started with T.D. Jakes. I knew I wasn't in the greatest spiritual place at the time. And so I started listening to successful or people who I deemed were successful, men and women of God, to help build me back up spiritually. I wasn't going to church at the time. And so, or if I was, it was very rare. I was in Indianapolis. I was in a different city. I wasn't even at home in South Bend, what I would call it. So I started listening to T.D. Jakes, right? And then as I'm listening to T.D. Jakes on YouTube, other speakers would pop up. I started listening to Miles Monroe. Man, that dude, so deep, literally changed my life. Nothing against T.D. Jakes, but after a while, I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. I need some more, right? Give me something more, something a little deeper. So I started listening to Miles Monroe, and then Steve Harvey would pop up, and Denzel Washington, and Oprah Winfrey, and just powerful Black people who had been successful. I wanted to hear from them. You'll hear people say a lot, especially in entrepreneurship. You got to surround yourself with people you want to be like. So I couldn't physically go get in their presence. So I just started tapping into them through YouTube and allowing them to pour into me and speak to me through those videos and through those audios. Eric Thomas is another one, helped me realize I got to get up. Successful people up at 3, 4, 5 a.m. No later than 5. You got to get up and you got to get ready to start your day, because you 3, 4 hours ahead of the world. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not waking up usually until about 7 or 8. And so I start listening to those audios, and from there I start reading books. Primerica helped me a lot because the atmosphere is extremely positive. And so when I would go to trainings, everybody's focused on, making money and changing the community and teaching people entrepreneurship and financial literacy. And so it really helped to be part of a larger group that was also doing the same thing that I was as well.
What's some of the ways that you have? Wait, I'm trying to ask this question. So, because I know you talked about being in people's presence that you want to be like, but in the beginning, sometimes it's hard to get in that presence. So, outside of YouTube videos and books and audio books, what's ways that you can get in other people's presence that you want to be like from
my perspective,
or experience?
We got to be willing to invest in ourselves. So I did attend seminars and workshops and speaking engagements that people would put on live. And even if it wasn't a extremely famous person, I would look at the topic. So, looking at different rooms that I can get myself in, or programs that were happening, or workshops that were happening, so I can get myself in the midst of people, like-minded people who were trying to learn the same things I was learning. So again, I would look at the topic. Like, I have gotten and have gone to some of those real estate seminars, right? I'll pay the $100 or the $79, but when I get there and they try to sell me on 4 or 5, right? Because I'm like, I can go do that myself. I realized early I can go do that myself. So, but I would attend like workshops and programs and things like that to allow me to get fed the information that I didn't know, even if it wasn't a famous person, just a group of people who are talking about something that I'm interested in that's positive and that can help me grow.
What's an average day for you? Like, you talk about being busy, your schedule is crazy. So like, what's an average day for you?
Oh boy, an average day for me. Right now, I've set myself back a little bit, so I'm not waking up as early as I was. I'm usually up somewhere around 6:30-ish. And then I get up, I get to the office. I'm not working out. I'm not doing some of the things that I know I need to do, and I know what successful people do. I get to the office, though, and I'm working 12 to 14 hours. So I'm usually at the office, but oftentimes, too, I may have a lunch appointment or, somebody where I got to go to them. But my goal is always pack my schedule. As an entrepreneur, I have to be in other people's face to build relationships or to really help them with what it is that I do, right? So if I'm not on Zoom, I'm building the relationships, some of the partnerships that I have with the school now and with the city, talking to them, showing up at meetings that they're at, putting myself around, again, the people who I want to be connected to, and making myself available for things like that. So I always pack my day out. And then if something cancels or reschedules, I always know what that to-do list looked like. What else could I shift and do with that time? I don't like to waste time. I'm not getting any of it back. And I got too much that I want to accomplish while I'm in the earth realm to not continue to stay busy.
What's some of the things that you want to accomplish?
I want IMPower Centers all across the United States, right? I want Black people to have a place that they feel they can go and get the answers to the questions that they have as we transition to higher levels of wealth and knowledge and education. And as we come out from amongst the mindsets that we have in our communities that are stricken with poverty, right? As we're coming out, we need somewhere to go. We need a place somebody to be able to talk to. And so I want our centers to become that. I want it to become that outlet, outside of the community centers. And that's no knock on any of them, but I don't want to focus on sports. I want to focus on the knowledge that we need to transform versus sports, right? So the community centers got that. They can do that part. But I'm going to focus on how do I buy a house? How do I buy a rental property? How do I get life insurance and make sure I'm properly protecting my family so that when I get out of here, I'm not leaving a bill, but I'm leaving wealth behind to help close that wealth gap, right? To help my next generation have a start at life and not have them starting over. To make sure my kids' financial situation is 100 times better than mine. And we can do those things. And I want the IMPower Center to be the place that they go to be able to get that help and not be ashamed, right? Not be afraid to talk about my credit score 400, but just dive in and know that somebody genuinely cares and about to help you fix that. That's what's rewarding to me. And so I want to see that all across the United States.
Wow. That's That's a big goal.
It is. It is. What they say, big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAG or whatever. BHAG. They call it BHAG goals.
That's the first time I heard that expression.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Big, hairy, audacious goals.
Big, hairy.
If your goals don't scare you, if your dreams don't scare you, it's not big enough. If you can do it and you don't need God to be involved to make it happen, it ain't big enough.
So once a person has a dream or a vision and they see it and they scared, how does one operate? Because you either have two choices, right? You either say nope or you say yeah. But how does one go?
You got to realize that you got to have a relationship with Christ. You got to have a relationship with the Father, right? You got to understand that you're not going to be able to do anything without him. And once you realize he's there and he's with you and he's walking with you, you really start to believe his scriptures. You know, I think you heard me at the last conference talk about how black people do church the best. We do church the best. I've never seen a church service like a black folks. You know, they say ain't no party like however the saying go. We do that. That's us. We get excited. We slob. We cry. We pray. We roll on the floor. Like literally, I've seen us as black people do that. But when it comes to really believing and manifesting his scripture, we terrible. We terrible. And why do I say we terrible? Because I still look at the condition and the state we in. That ain't him. He don't look like that. You know what I'm saying? And so we got to realize that he is who we reading about. That he actually has the power to do everything that's in that scripture. And we actually can lean on him and trust him and know that he gonna show up. Even though we don't see. We got to reactivate that faith that used to be in our communities. You know, that faith to believe they were going to get out of slavery. The faith to believe that God was going to show up and something was going to change no matter how long it took. And to be consistent right there, right? So just having that relationship with God is really what helps me because I still get nervous and I still get scared a lot. But then I remember that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's just not words I'm reading on a page and get excited about on Sunday. That actually happens, right? So me believing that his word is true and it actually can come to pass in my life and walking and moving like I believe it. That's what helps me. So when I have these big dreams, the first thing I got to realize is that he's not going to allow me to have them. The dreams and the visions, if they can't come to pass, that's not a just God. He's not going to show me something and then say, nah, boo-boo, you can't get this, right? He said, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard. So whatever you've seen, it's bigger than that, right? So whatever I've seen, I know that it's even greater than what I've seen because he don't show me everything. And so I just got to believe and know that every time I get up, every time I move, every time I do anything that he's there. And so because he's there, I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to hold back. I don't have to resist good things, right? So that's what helps me.
What's some of the ways that you went about doing that, building that relationship in the beginning?
With Christ?
With Christ, correct.
Whew. Folk they probably don't want to hear this part. The first thing I had to do to build my relationship with Christ that I have now is get away from church.
Yeah.
Ooh, Jesus.
They weren't ready for that.
Man, I had to get away from church. And I told God, I had went through a very traumatic experience. For me, divorce is traumatic, especially when you believe God and his word. And you feel like divorce should be forever. And you feel like no matter what you're going through in the divorce, that you should stick it out and figure it out and make it work. So when I went through divorce, it was extremely traumatic for me. I I didn't know what life was about to look like. And so even though I kept going to church, I still wasn't getting to a place where I felt like I was standing on solid ground. I ended up in another relationship. And so I used that relationship as my reason to stop going to church, right? And in that time period, I told God that I needed him to strip me of everything I had ever learned at church. I wanted a relationship with you. I want to know that I know that I know. I don't want to just be doing stuff because somebody on the pulpit told me to do it this way or that way. I want to do it because I know it's you and because I know that I'm doing it for you, right? Because of my relationship with you. And for me, I couldn't figure out how to do that in church, right? So I had to separate myself from church, and I did that. And for about 3.5 years or so, I would go visit, but I never recommitted. Because when I was in church, I was praise dancing, serving the pastor, right? And what do I mean by serving the pastor? I'm getting towels, I'm making tea, right? I'm making sure he good. They call it his nurse, right? I was an armor bearer. I was a greeter. So I did a lot of different jobs within the church. So I spent a lot of time there and commitment there, right? And I'm not saying that's a terrible thing, but it wasn't what helped me get free. So I had to break away from all of that, really build a relationship with God. And what did I do to build the relationship? I began to pray and read his word myself, spend time with him, cry out to him, talk to him regularly. And throughout the day now, I realize that I'm praising him all the time, right? I'm giving him honor and glory all day unconsciously, because that's what comes out when whatever you put in is going to come out. So I was putting in his word. I was listening to those audiobooks and listening to T.D. Jakes and listening to Miles Monroe. So that's what I was feeding myself. So that's what was coming out. And so I just really believe that now my relationship with Christ is one that I've created, and not one that somebody else manufactured because of what they were saying. I always just did what other people said. Whether I knew it, believed it, understood it, whatever. I just did it because they said I was supposed to do it, right? So now I know that when I move in what I do, it's because of my relationship. Like, I really got a real relationship with him. I spent time with him. I can't have a relationship without spending time. And when I go to church, that's not me spending time with God. I'm there with people, right? So my time with God was my time with God. It's he and I. And that's how I built and cultivated that relationship.
What does wealth mean to you?
Wow. A wealthy person to me is somebody who is free. And so for me, being free is being able to do what I want, when I want, how I want, where I want, and with who I want. With no restrictions, right? And so for me, wealth comes with money, but also relationships, and being emotionally sound, and having the fruit of the Spirit, really the joy, the happiness, the peace, right? Having all these things in my life at the same time. To me, a person who has that and they free, that's wealth. It's not just money.
It's not just money. Wealth is not just money.
Wealth is not just money. It's a lot that comes with being wealthy. You think about the folk who get a lot of money and then end up on drugs and overdosing, and that's not wealth to me. You know what I'm saying? That's not wealth. You got a lot of money, but money only makes a person more of what they already are. So if you're a bad person, you're going to be a worse person because you got a lot of money to do it with. But if you're truly a person that's seeking God and that's seeking your best experience here in the earth realm in its totality in all areas of your life. We talk about health, we talk about money, we talk about emotional stability. All these different areas to me come into play when you talk about wealth. So when I leave here, I want to leave all that. I don't want to just leave money. I'm going to leave some money and some stuff, but I want to leave my family with the fullness of all those things: their health, their soul, their money, their, you know what I'm saying? Their emotional stability. I want to leave them a blueprint on how to make sure you getting all those things, because just money by itself, it's not going to get it.
When you leave here, this earth, and go on to be with the Lord, what do you want people to say about you? Like, what do you want your legacy to be?
It's funny you say that, because I will always say they're going to people will remember Kay Farlow like they remember Maya Angelou. I want to have an impact that's so great that I'm unforgettable. And not just because of the recognition of it, but because she did something so powerful and she transformed people's lives by the things that she said. Right? When you think about her Still I Rise, she literally showed us and told us through that message that no matter where you are in life, you have the ability to rise. You can get up and come up from wherever you at. So I want that to be my legacy. I want people, when they think about me, they think about hope. You know, they really feel like they can do anything that they put their mind to, because they know where I come from and they know what I did to get where I was, and they can do the same thing. That God doesn't favor me as a person, he favors principle. Right? And I thank God again for my coach. He would say that all the time. God is not a God of people, a respecter of person, rather. He's a respecter of principle. So what are you doing with your life, right? So I want that to be my legacy.
How can youth, the young people, prepare for building wealth? Like, what can they do right now? The young people, like 16, 17, 18, like what can they do to start on that journey?
You know, and when I think about youth, I'm focused on the Black community. So when you ask me that question, my mind immediately go to them. Like the youth in our community, what can they do? Because it's going to look different from a different community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we definitely talking about our community.
Yes. And so I think about our community and what can they do? You know, it's unfortunate, but they have to really break away from anything that they're seeing, because they seeing a lot of stuff. They seeing more stuff today than what I saw coming up, and I saw a lot of stuff. So they gotta separate themselves from the negativity that they're seeing, right? Whether that means being at home or being at the library, they gotta really do the same thing that we gotta do as adults, and surround yourself and get into programs and activities that's going to help you shift your mindset from anything that you've ever seen. Because the unfortunate thing is, in most of our homes in our community, the parents haven't been given the tools, or they don't have the tools, or they're not getting the tools to really help these kids. You know, I think about King Richard. So by the time this airs, people would have seen that movie by now. But when I saw Will Smith in the movie King Richard, it made me feel like, man, I'm behind even on what I did or do for my son. He's 24. Have you seen that movie?
Nah, just a little bit of it. Just a little bit of it.
This man literally had a whole plan laid out for his girls. And he spoke into existence what was going to happen in their lives even before they were born. He told his wife, I want to have more kids because God had given him a plan for their life. And he didn't give up. He didn't let up. And he spoke into their life and spoke that plan. And when everybody thought he was crazy, he said, no, God said he gonna do this. Can you imagine if we all had that kind of representation in our life? Wow. You talk about powerful. It's unfortunate, but a lot of our homes are dysfunctional. So the kids and the youth literally have to embrace everything that don't look like what you're seeing. And get yourself connected into positivity and positive groups so that you could have a chance at having the best possible life as early as possible. And I know that's big, and that's a big old, that's not fine-tuning it, but that's the first thing that I feel like they got to do. And then just as I did as an adult, they can do as kids, right? You know how to read. You learn how to read early. What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you pouring in? Because that's what's going to come out. So if you listening to and reading and watching all this garbage, I've never seen housewives a day in my life. Never. Not interested. I don't want to sit and feed myself a bunch of negative garbage. That's literally embarrassing. Most of the time I see snippets. I love Trey Marquise as he trying to create this video about or this movie to depict what healthy black relationships can look like. I love that because we see too much mess. And these kids are watching and listening to and seeing all of this craziness on social media, on TV, in the video games. My little sister showed me where is it Travis Scott who got a lot of heat right now?
Yeah.
She showed me where this man came through the video and did the video game and did a whole concert for these kids. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. So whatever this video game is, these kids play. What's a popular one? The video game. Do you know? Fortnite. That's what it was. He showed up on the Fortnite video game and did a whole concert for the kids. Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy? Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's pretty cool. But what are we feeding them when we do that? What that message look like? The unfortunate thing, it doesn't align with anything healthy and positive most of the time. Now, I don't know all his music. I don't know the lyrics. I didn't even know who he was until recently with all this drama. It's just not what I pour in myself, right? But that's what our kids got to do. They got to literally, it's almost like they're in a losing battle. Because not only do they not know the difference, because they mama and them doing that. So they literally got to realize this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, and I got to go over here and do this instead. That's a lot for kids.
So then you almost got to work on the whole family.
You do.
You can't just work on the kids.
You do.
Because if you impact the kids and then not the mother and the father, then the mother and father still have overall
influence over the babies. Yep.
So eventually, whatever they was taught, eventually they'll lose it.
Yeah. That's what I feel like's happened in our schools. You know what I'm saying? Like, the schools do what they can. These teachers do what they used to. I think a lot of them fed up at this point. Wow. Excuse me. But they would do what they could at school to pour into us, to help us, to redirect us, right? But then we go back home. When I go back home, I got access to all the stuff that's not healthy for me. And so now I'm going to spend time there, and then I'm going to come back to the school, and it's just this constant tug of war, literally, about what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. And they don't even talk about the weekend when I'm away from the school for 2 days. And then the summer, when I'm away from the school for months and I'm not seeing anything healthy. I'm in the chaos and I'm in the dysfunction for these long periods of time. So we definitely got to go after the parents first, in my opinion.
Do you think it's hope? Do you think that we can actually reach the youth with all of the distractions and all the different things that's coming against it, do you think that we really have a chance to reach them?
I do. Right. And it seems hopeless, but I told somebody before, the moment I don't believe that there's hope, then man, just Lord, take me now. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what I'm basing my entire life on. Chasing and going after that hope and working towards transforming and changing. And so if I ever reach a place where I feel like there's no hope, man, it's a wrap. I don't even want to live in that space. Seriously. Like, I don't even want to live there. I don't want to consider what life looked like where I believe there's no hope. Because I feel like as long as I believe that there's hope, then there's hope. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, God could literally, because of my belief, transform, redo, right? Whatever he got to do, he can do that because he going to at least find one that feel like there's hope. And that's still going to be seeking him for the change. So I do feel like it's hope. And I just believe that we as Black people got to do something that I've never seen before in my lifetime. Okay. And I say that in my lifetime because when I look back and started studying slavery, we came together at one point. We came together to get out of probably the worst situation that we've ever been in. And that's the oppression of slavery. We came together to break free from there. But then we got free, or what we deemed as free. And now we didn't enter back into slavery, literally. Like, we really come subject to the systematic oppression now that's in place. We've come subject to it. We had a place where we scared to get off of Section 8. We scared to lose our benefits. So because I'm so fearful that the man won't give me nothing else if I am a little bit successful, I stay in this suppression. I stay, you know what I'm saying? So we still in slavery. And it's here because there's nobody keeping us there but us. We scared to literally experience what God got for us because I'm going to lose my benefits and my Section 8 and my food stamps and all of that. Not realizing that it's systemically designed for you to have those feelings. And so you've come subject to it instead of breaking free from it. So we got to come together again. We got to come together again to break us out of that slavery. Jesus. You know what I'm saying?
I totally feel you. When I see, and I can see like the B100, I can see small groups of Black people coming together. But how the heck can we get all Black people to come? I don't understand them because you have the Spanish community. They come together. Whites, they come together. Everybody come together for the greater good of the cause. They could put their problems aside, and get it done. But when you will not catch 50 of us living in no one house for umpteen amount of years so we can take our money and go about property. We would probably get through a week of that if we real. You know what I'm saying?
Instead of a week.
Like and I really want to help our people come up financially, spiritually, be the fathers that we need to be in our communities and our homes, like you say, but we have to come together. But what is it going to take for us to come together? Like, does somebody got to just slap us around? Like, they don't even need that because we getting that done on a regular basis through multiple ways.
Yeah. I really believe that it's going to take, and I believe it's happening. I do. I believe it's happening. I believe that God is connecting people who are wholeheartedly, with no motives, sincerely desiring to see us in a better place, where they willing to put up their own money, their own resources to make sure that it happens. And you're going to see that group of leaders emerge because He's connected me with so many of us. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, God, why do you keep bringing these different ones in my life? But it makes sense. If I'm saying that we all got to come together, it's going to take a group of us that really stand up and be the leadership that our people need to see again, right? Where is MLK in today's world? Where is Malcolm X, right? Sojourner Truth, and I don't even know all the names, but it's a lot of them. Where they at? They here and they exist, and I believe they're emerging now. And it's gonna be those of us that rise up from amongst all of this stuff and show each other that we can do this and we can do this together. And that I'm not trying to get nothing from you. I'm not gonna take nothing from you. I'm just gonna pour into you, add value to your life, and help you rise. That's it. And it's gonna take that group, right? And so, as we do that, we can't be afraid, because they weren't scared. They weren't scared to die for the cause. You ain't got too many of them these days. But those of us that exist, because I believe I'm one, and those of us that exist, we coming together. And as we come together, it's gonna be tough to stop again, just like it was tough to stop them. So that's what I believe has to happen. And then that group of leaders have to work from the same agenda. Just like these political campaigns, they pull together and they decide what they gonna attack and the things they gonna work on. That group of leaders have to decide what they gonna attack and what they gonna work on right within the Black communities. It may be we have to buy the building, like this building. This would be perfect to have a bunch of us here living and growing and working and doing. So we have to bring our resources and our monies together to create those spaces for us, because that's what you're right. That Hispanic market did, the Hispanic culture, I should say. That's what they did. Man, we used to talk about them 20 years ago, 25 years ago when I was coming up. Man, they lived together, man. All them folks, when they open the car door, you gonna see 15 people get out the same van, and them was jokes that we cracked. But now we look at the numbers, and home ownership, income, all of that is above ours.
Yeah. Man.
So what we sit back and laugh at is a good part of the solution on what we got to do to make it happen for us. And it's possible. It's going to happen.